McCaffery. He's a sports reporter for the Delaware County Times, and he gets a Hall of Fame vote, too, so he knows that his colleague Jason Stark is going in today for the Taylor G. Spink Award. He's our guest here on the Pete Thompson Show. Blackjack, how are you, buddy?
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Good, thanks. Where are we finding you at on this Saturday morning?
Well, tonight I'll be preparing to go to the Philadelphia Union game and write a column on that, touch base with Jim Curtin and see what we'll do with that. And then training camp starts for the Eagles next week, and a lot of Phillies and Sixers to talk about, and plenty to write about these days.
I'm so glad you brought up training camp, because when I mentioned you were going to be on earlier, I was trying to think, if I know for sure you've been to Lehigh, you were at Lehigh, do you go back to the Westchester days?
Back to Westchester, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when Buddy Ryan was coaching, sure. And Dick Vermeil covered those teams at Westchester. Those were long days. They were long training camps and full contact, twice a day practices. I don't remember exactly. It seems to me like it started at 9 in the morning, and they weren't getting done till 6 o'clock at night. They were different times.
You and Bob Groth. So we had Groth on one time, and he was talking about the Westchester training camps and what Buddy was like too. Buddy would come over and you'd ask about somebody, and he'd say, "Well, number 26 instead of that." He would never call anybody by name. You're trying to ask him about, I think, Ben Smith, for example, and he just called the guy by his number.
Yeah, he was great. He was pretty honest. It's like if you were there to work on a story on a particular guy, a lot of times a coach will work with you and say something nice about the guy, but if he didn't like it, you'd say, "Oh, what do you think of so and so today?" Well, he made a tackle finally. Questions like that. That's the kind of answers you get. And so it was covering Buddy Ryan was a great joy. It was a lot of fun.
One of the great memories, Jack, of my time doing any radio down here with 97.3 ESPN was when Mike Gill and I found a number, got a house number to Buddy Ryan's farm in Kentucky, and I think his wife answered, and she said, "He's out in the barn, hang on." And then the next thing you know, he's picking up the phone and was on with us for 20 minutes. You remember his most famous horse, right? The name, what he named his horse after he left the Eagles?
I don't remember that. What was that?
He named a horse Fired for Winning.
You know what? Now that you mentioned it, yeah, Fired for Winning. He had a great opinion of himself, didn't he?
He certainly did. Of course, he never won a playoff game, but he did drive around Chicago and toot the horns, right? I mean, that
was one of the great of all time. One of the great episodes of all time. What he did was he's right. He had a great theory. And his theory was always that if I win, the media can't hurt me, and if I lose, the media can't help me. But the X factor was that if you won and you ripped the owner, there was the X factor. Then you can't get help. So yeah, if he got fired for winning, which technically he did, he can blame himself, because I never saw a guy go out of his way as much as he did to take shots at the ownership like he did. I mean, beyond just subtle remarks. You may have been there, Pete, the day that he came around with the scab rings after a press conference.
I remember.
Yeah, literally prop humor. Like, literally gigantic rings at a press conference that he walked into the stadium and gave to the general manager and the personnel director. Could you imagine if that happened today? What kind of uproar that would cause?
Yeah, he used to call Norman Bremen the man in France, and of course we all remember the Gruden story where he was working at his desk one night and all of a sudden the drop ceiling falls down and one of the stadium cats that lived there was chasing one of the rats and they fell through like Judd Nelson in the Breakfast Club trying to sneak out of the library, right?
Yeah, they were great time. They were great time because back then, people were people. They weren't terrified to say anything. They said what they felt like saying. There wasn't social media to just badger them 24 hours a day. And because of that, he was loved in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. Jack McCaffery's with us. He's from the Delco Times and seen a lot and written a lot. And we're talking the Eagles. That's our Twitter question of the day. What player or players are you most looking forward to seeing out on the field? So I'll ask that to you, Jack. What player or players are you most looking forward to seeing out on the field for the Eagles? Are you most curious about?
Oh, yeah, obviously you got to go to Wentz. How does he look? How's he? They made their choice. I would have my choice would have been Foles. They decided to go with Wentz. It's a very close call. You can win with either one. You're not going to get a whole lot of feel for how he is going to prepare to perform in the regular season by what he does in training camp. But you want to see him bounce around. You want to see how he interacts with players. You want to see that he's back and 100%. To me, it's very clear the one player that you really want to look at as they go forward is what kind of quarterback is Wentz going to be.
So you say you would have gone with Foles, despite everybody that said no, you have to re-sign Wentz. Is it because of his durability, or is there another reason why you think Foles would have been your choice if you were the Eagles, if you were king of the world, as another guy used to write?
Better player. He's better. He's been a better player his whole career. He was better. The first time he was around with the Eagles, he didn't do great when he went away, but came back, won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. You just watched the games, and when I say it that way, I don't mean to put Carson Wentz down. In other words, if you ask me, who would you rather have, Tom Brady or Joe Montana? And I got to answer, I'll say Tom Brady. That doesn't mean I don't want Joe Montana. So I'm not saying, Foles, yes, and Wentz, horrible. It's a very, 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 very narrow decision. But in my opinion, from what I saw, Foles was just better. And part of the problem in today's day and age is that people get too attached to a draft pedigree. He was the number 2 overall pick in the draft, while Foles was, a 4th-round pick, a 3rd-round pick? So therefore, he must be better. Well, he's not better. He was never better, and he won't be better. But he may be good enough.
You throw out names like Tom Brady and Joe Montana. Those guys are Hall of Famers. In the other sport that you cover heavily in the summer, baseball, today and tomorrow are the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Of course, Roy Halladay going in, but you tweet out that he will not have the cap logo. He's going in neutral, no cap, right?
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting because of the lopsidedness of his career. It was 12 years in Toronto and 4 in Philadelphia, yet few people ever really wanted Philadelphia as much as he wanted Philadelphia. He's the guy that Philadelphia fans always hoped would be for theirs. The guy who was at the peak of his career and decided, I want nothing more than to pitch in Philadelphia. It was an amazing thing, and he did, and he came to Philadelphia, got them to a World Series, pitched a perfect game, pitched a no-hitter in the playoffs, won a Cy Young Award, was beloved in the town, and vice versa. And it's any other person would have gone into the Hall of Fame as a Toronto Blue Jay, and nobody would have complained. Of course, because he was Roy Halladay really was a Blue Jay, but his family and him had a connection to Philadelphia that was stronger than anybody that you'll ever know. And for that, it was kind of quite a tribute that his family asked that the hat be neutral, and therefore really a reflection, as they say, because they loved both cities, and I believe them. Obviously, that's what they think. But the fact that he loved Philadelphia equal to Toronto, even though he played 1/3 of the time there, says a lot about his relationship with Philadelphia.
Yeah, you're right about the fact that for Phillies fans, there can be no more respectful tip of the cap. Obviously, his wife, her speeches, when she spoke at Citizens Bank Park and when she spoke in Clearwater, and I'm sure when she speaks in Cooperstown, all those speeches are going to be very impactful and emotional for sure.
It's going to be a great day. I've been to the Hall of Fame, I don't know, half a dozen times or more for all the Phillies over the years. I would have liked to have gotten up there this year, but Roy's not with us, and I'll be enjoying watching it on TV.
There's no easy way to get there, is there, Jack?
No, it's not, and but it's always a pleasure to go. It's great, and I was there the day Schmidt and Ashburn went in simultaneously. I never saw so many Phillies fans outside of a game. I guess I have the parade. Other than the parade, you wouldn't have believed how many tens of thousands of Phillies fans were there that day.
Yeah, that was July of '95. True confession, I've only been to the Baseball Hall of Fame once, but I did go with my father. So my dad had worked in upstate New York. We sort of incorporated into now that he was retired, we were going to go to his former company's picnic and then make our way up to Cooperstown. And we had breakfast at the Cooperstown Diner. Other than when I first started my broadcasting career in Scottsbluff, the Cooperstown Diner was the only place I'd ever seen, the only other place I'd ever seen that had a half of his address. Its address was like 121 and a half Main Street, Cooperstown. Like, because it's so small, you can't give it its own number. It has to be a half.
That's a small diner, man.
about 13 seats or 14 seats. Jack McCaffery with us from the Delco Times. So the Phillies, they win last night. Harper appears to be heating up a little bit. They've now signed a lefty, Drew Smiley. Maybe he'll be a rescue project that'll turn into something. Are you buying into this Phillies team, or are they just going to play with our emotions and miss out?
No, I buy into them. They'll make the playoffs. Harper is such a cut above. He's a superstar. You're seeing him now perform as a superstar. He's just remarkable to watch on a day-to-day basis, the way he smashes that ball, the way he plays in the outfield, the way he energizes the team. He's going to be around for 13 years. Before this 13 years is out, he's going to go down as the best player in Phillies history. He's going to carry them into the playoffs. Unfortunately for the Phillies, they probably have fallen too far behind the Braves to win the division. But as far as making the wild card, I can't see them missing. No, Smiley's just a guy, but it just shows you how bad their back end of their rotation is, where a guy who was pitching for San Antonio in the AAA last week is now better than Nick Pivetta.
Right.
A better alternative than Nick Pivetta. They're going to have to do more than Drew Smiley. They'll get one or two more pitchers in here, maybe make a little trade, and they'll be well positioned in August and September behind Harper to make a real run at the wild card. And who knows, once they get in the playoffs, if you're a Phillies fan, the encouraging thing is how well Arrieta's been pitching, even with this bone spur.
Right.
You feel as if you're on pins and needles. Something could burst at any time here. But a real tribute to Jake Arrieta for two things. One, not calling it a season. The guy makes $25-30 million. He easily could have said, "Listen, I got pain in my elbow. I'm taking surgery. Goodbye." He didn't. He really he dug in and said, "I'm going to try to do what's best for this team." And the last two starts, he's been great, and it's surprising to me. I thought that bone spur would be more of a problem than it was, and he's pitched through it. So if you have Nola and Arrieta pitching it the way he's pitching, and maybe you pick up one more guy, a Greinke or something like that, then you hold your breath. Maybe an Eflin or Smiley or somebody becomes your fourth pitcher. You can almost see your way through the playoffs. And championship team, I'm not sure about all that, but playoff team, absolutely.
Jack McCaffery with us from the Delco Times. You can follow his work at Jack McCaffery on Twitter. And, Jack, I was at that game as far as Arrieta goes. I was at the Nationals game that was a walk-off home run by Michael Franco. I'm not sure there's anything. And I was a fan. I wasn't in the press box. And my girlfriend's son said to me, "I don't think I've ever seen you more excited," because, we're so trained not to cheer or not to react. And yet, is there anything better than a walk-off winner in sports?
It's great, isn't it? And it's whether it's an overtime goal in hockey or the walk-off home run where the game is here and then 1 second later it completely changes and the fans just exhale and say, "Wow, that was great." That's what makes sports great, isn't it, Pete?
Very much so, Jack, and guys like you make it great too, my friend. And I'm so thankful that we were able to track you down. I hope we'll have you on again later on through this summer, and maybe when we get to September, have you back on. Maybe a little Eagles heavy. Plus, we didn't talk about if Ben Simmons is ever going to find a jump shot or not. Now they paid him, so we'll definitely have you on again to pick into some other topics, my friend.
Oh, okay, great. I look forward to it, Pete. Thanks.
All right, Jack. Jack McCaffery with us, the sports reporter from the Delco Daily Times.